dog grows, Amanda's on her toes, but Meat Boy brings the syphilis, don't you know? Tall, bit and Cameron, they're in for a fight. Jersey Harrison and Debbie, the spotlight's bright. Scrappy beef, it's time to snooze. Meat Dog Rose and Amanda, who'll take the heat? The battle of the bosses, let's throw down. In the octagon, it's the talk of the town.
What's good, Meat Boys? Yo, UFC Vegas 89 is this weekend, Meat Boy, and we're on a little bit of a meaty little streak of ours. I mean, we've been chilling straight at the grill, and before we jump into this week's breakdowns, let's talk about last week. Meat Boy, was kind of a good week, especially for you. I know that you had mentioned you thought you'd be going 5-1. You ended up going 4-1, but if Bryan Battle doesn't make his opponent quit, then that would probably have been a 5-1 record for you. So recapping last week, what stood out to you? What fights were surprising to you? Who do you think made the best impression? What were your thoughts on last week's fights?
Yeah, last week's fights were very good. Pumped to win, fake 5-1, 4-1. Man, Bryan Battle looked absolutely phenomenal, and I love this new persona with the bleached hair and the chiseled abs. Dude's an absolute savage. He's an absolute G, and I love this WWE persona he's bringing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, right? It was the co-meet. It was against Ange Lusa, and it was a fight that he was really dominating start to finish, and then a thumb just slightly grazed the cornea of Ange Lusa, and Lusa, he couldn't see. They started to fight after the fight was waived to no contest. Suddenly he then could see, so I was encouraged for Ange Lusa to regain his sight back so quickly, but it was a bummer for Bryan Battle because he was definitely dominating that contest, and we thought it was en route to an easy lock victory for him. But nonetheless, he looked great. I'm with you. Love the WWE stuff that he's doing. Curious to see what it earns him next. And then another fight that kind of stood out to both of us was C-Rod versus Isaac Dolgarian, and that was a fight that you and I were both all over the dog. We picked C-Rod. It was pretty close, though, and we were both pretty impressed with Dolgarian. So what were your thoughts on C-Rod? What do you think about Isaac Dolgarian and takeaways from that fight?
Yeah, C-Rod's an absolute G. We definitely predicted that one, kind of saw it going where, the longer the fight goes, the better he's going to be. It just proved what it was. He's an absolute dog. His grappling is amazing. He survived. I mean, C-Rod, that pace got put on him like no other. That was crazy. I was like, I don't know how this guy's keeping this pace going. If he keeps it for 3 more rounds, C-Rod's donezo. But classic C-Rod, he prevails, and then he absolutely demolishes second and especially that third round. I couldn't believe that they didn't call that fight a few times, but that was a phenomenal performance. Just shows that he really is the real deal. I can't wait to see C-Rod, what he does, because I feel like he's one of the most slept on fighters in the UFC right now. Nobody's talking about him.
Yeah, he's super slept on, yet is also super talented. And Dolgarian, too, I mean, the guy looked pretty impressive, especially throughout those first 8 or 9 minutes. He had that sort of like Marab style, relentless pace, relentless pressure, except it did finally expire like it would for most humans that aren't named Marab. But in that third round, I too was surprised. I thought C-Rod was going to pick up that comeback finish, but it went the distance, ended up being a split decision. And some people thought Dolgarian still should have gotten the nod, perhaps winning rounds 1 and 2, but that second round was close. C-Rod kind of fake dropped him towards the end of it, so it was a tough one to score. But yeah, definitely a dominant third round and an amazing comeback performance for him because he's a guy that seemingly, if you're not putting C-Rod out, then the dude's always going to just be floating around, chipping away, and he's dangerous with every minute of that contest. And another fight that stood out to me, Meat, and I got to give you your props on this one. Ovince St. Preux took on Kenny Nzechukwu. We both sort of scoffed at the Kenny Nzechukwu minus 500 odds, but I, for Meat Boy, still picked Kenny. I still thought he'd be able to get it done over the 40-plus-year-old OSP, but OSP split decision. What'd you see from that fight? Did anything surprise you? And that fight was kind of a banger, no?
Yeah, the fight was definitely a banger, and yeah, OSP still got it, man. I mean, he didn't get the submission, which was unfortunate, but he looked pretty darn good, and like I said, this guy went toe-to-toe with one of the GOATs, if not the greatest of all time, Johnny Bones Jones. You gotta respect on that, and it seems people forgot that he did that because I mean he was, his opponent was a minus 500. Like that's crazy. OSP's no joke. I mean he's an absolute veteran.
Yeah, no joke. Absolute veteran, and it didn't sound like he was hanging up the gloves. I thought that that could be a cool way to exit, but him and his coach seems like they still have a lot of work to do. So interested to see what he gets next. But nonetheless, cool performance for OSP. And then there was also no shortage of finishes on the card. Macy Chasson picked up a first-round finish. GM3 got an easy second-round finish over Barberena. Natan Levy got absolutely smoked by Mike Davis in Mike Davis's return. Jafel Filio picked up a submission. Shout out Diesel, who called that one in the comments. And then Thiago Moises got an easy light work third-round finish as well. And then, of course, Meat Boy, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the most important finish of the card, one that you and I were the most bullish on, and in truth, the most precise on. It was T-Burrow versus Tuivasa. Absolute meatlock. We called that. We said first round submission. It was a first round submission for our boy T-Burrow. What were your thoughts on that contest? And we kind of told him, eh?
Yeah, Tybura, he is a lock. I mean, if you guys saw the beginning of the last week's video, you already knew what the biz was. Tybura is an absolute G. We kind of saw it going exactly that. You know, gets a little bit of blood on his forehead, ragdolls Shui, sends him back to the feather lands, and becomes another W in his lane, and he's gonna keep going. Tib is the absolute gatekeeper of the heavyweight, and it's just been shown that if you're not kind of the in that top 5 area, you're just not ready for it. And as it's shown fighting Tybura, Shui isn't the one. Shui's been getting, beat up by a lot of these top dogs, and Tib's one of the top dogs, and people I guess forgot. I don't know. It's kind of confusing to see everyone's riding Shui's, train, but that's another one. People sleep on Tybura. Tybura is no joke, and hopefully that fight just showed, the Kazis that Tib is no joke when it comes to the UFC.
Yeah, he truly is no joke. He truly is well-rounded, and you hit the nail on the head when you said, he's probably going to eat at least one shot early. And if we recall, in the first minute, our boy T-Burrow was bloodied up with, I think it was like a short elbow of Tuivasa, but he was able to, again, gather his wits about him and then just impose his game on him. And then by the time the 4th minute rolled around, just like you said, Tuivasa was literally snoring on the canvas. So great stuff from T-Burrow. Great stuff from the Meat Boys, our second straight meatlock. And I guess with that, Meat Boy, we can just transition straight over to what we anticipate being our third meatlock in a row. And kicking off this UFC Vegas 89 card, it's obviously going to be perhaps a controversial one, a little scrappy in that, but we have to take what the card offers. And unfortunately, fortunately perhaps, it's offering Edmen Shahbazyan at minus 192. And Edmen Shahbazyan is 12-4 as an MMA fighter. He has lost 4 of his last 5, and his only win was a performance of the night finish over Dalcha, not champion. But this is a guy in Edmen Shahbazyan who came into the UFC by storm, right? He had won 4 in a row, Dana White Contender Series, absolute hype beast, and then runs into Derek Brunson. And if we really deep dive, Meat Boy, we Shahbazyan meatlocked that fight against Brunson in August 2020, and in that moment, we almost swore off any future Shahbazi bum meatlocks, but in this one, we're taking what AJ Dobson is offering, and we think that the Shahbazyan meatlock train is going to just get a kickstart now in 2024 since it didn't 4 years prior. So in this one, again, he's taking on AJ Dobson, who, yes, is coming off a recent win in the UFC. He got it done over Tafon Nchukwi, but that was a fight that was a snoozer start to finish, one that probably neither guy should have actually done enough to earn a win. If there was ever a 9-9 draw across 3 rounds, it should have been that fight. But nonetheless, a win for Dobson. He's now 1-2 in the UFC. He had got absolutely smoked by Jacob Malkoun and Armen Petrosian before that. So in this one, Meat Boy, we went back and forth on what the meatlock would be. You and I admittedly aren't the biggest Edmen Shahbazyan fans, but we do think that he's a meatlock in this one. So how do you think he gets this one done over AJ Dobson, and what should inspire confidence in betting on Edmen?
Yeah, Edmen is an absolute stud. I mean, you're looking at these guys, they've already thrown him. He's 26 and he's already fought Imavov, Jack Hermanson, Derek Brunson, Anthony Hernandez, Fluffy, which, as we've seen, these guys are the G's, the top 5s, the top dogs, and it seems that's who Edmen only loses to. Anyone else, he sleeps. Brad Tavares, KO. Jack Marshman, sub. Darren the Dentist Stewart, decision. And his only decision. And Darren the Dentist Stewart was no joke when he was in the UFC. Sad to see him go. But I think this is going to be light work. AJ Dobson's low key a bum. Record might look pretty 7-2, but I'm telling you, he is going to be slept this weekend.
Yeah, AJ Dobson just isn't that strong of a competitor in this UFC 185 division. And while, yes, it's great that he got a recent win and Shahbazyan has been struggling to earn those himself, the level of competition that these guys have faced is vastly different. And you got to imagine that if Dobson faced all those same fighters that Shahbazyan has been getting bodied by, that he too would get bodied as well. And if we look at Tapology, Meat Boy, 83% is rolling with Shahbazyan. They think that this is a good setup, layup opportunity on a snoozer of a card for the Golden Boy, this once hyped up UFC prospect to get a free win in theory, but 17% is rolling with Dobson. There's a lot of beige on both sides, so you mentioned KO, TKO perhaps for Shahbazyan. Tapology thinks decision is most likely. Are you pretty bullish on Shahbazyan definitely picking up a finish in this one, or is there also a path where he perhaps picks up a decision?
You know, he could pick up decision, but I don't know. With only one decision on his record, he's kind of bound to get a KO to make it a solid 11.
Yeah, very interested. I'm curious to see if he can pick up a finish because while AJ Dobson does pick up L's, he is pretty durable in the sense that he hasn't been getting finished. However, Petrosian and Malkoun aren't necessarily noted for being devastating finishers themselves. So perhaps Shahbazyan by finish is the play. I'm going to go by decision. I think Shahbazyan is going to win this fight, but I think it's going to be convincing in the sense that it's 30-27. Perhaps he doesn't pick up the finish, but it's dominant and it's one that reinserts Shahbazyan back into the right conversations and gives this guy some confidence because at one point he was riding 4 straight in a row. We were there when he head kicked Brad Tavares in the first 2.5 minutes at MSG. It seemed like this guy was about to be untouchable, and then he's been very touched up since. So this is a good opportunity, good meatlock. Get us our third in a row, 94th overall, and we're keeping it simple. Not going to be breaking the bank on Edmen Shahbazyan, so just throwing down an easy 96. Make us a clean $50, get us even more in the green than we already are. But we think Shahbazyan's the next meatlock on the list. So any last thoughts on the meatlock, meat boy?
No, Shahbazyan first round KO. That is the meat prediction.
He says first round, I say decision. Shahbazyan lock nonetheless. But move us over, Meat Boy. Some heavy meat sling and slobber knockers next. Mick Parkin, aka usually Meat Larkin, is taking on Muhammad Usman. Mo Uz, who is Kamaru's little brother and is actually a plus 124 favorite in this one. It's been interesting to see the odds makers finally hopping along the Mick Parkin hype train because we've been cashing as a Mick Parkin dog the last few fights, and now finally he's a pretty decent minus 148 favorite in this one. And we've been riding Meat Larkin for a while. One of Tom Aspinall's main training partners, a guy who's getting better and better and is undefeated in the UFC so far. However, if I'm playing a little bit devil's advocate to all the hype that we've been bringing Mick Parkin, that last fight against KO Machado was kind of fake close, and I don't really see Machado as being that high level of a fighter in this UFC division. So I almost wonder if we needed to temper our expectations a little bit as far as the next few Mick Parkin fights are concerned. But Muhammad Usman is probably going to tell us a lot because this is a guy who I've been kind of critical of, but each time he's stepped into the cage, he's been getting better himself as well. So love the trajectory of both of these fighters, and I think they're meeting each other at the right time in both their careers. You taking Mo Uz as a slight dog in this one, or you going to stick with your boy Mick Parkin? And if so, how far is Mick Larkin, Meat Larkin, taking this hype train?
I think McLarkin is going to get this done. Um, he's training with, Lock Spinall. Man, it's so hard to go against them in that crew. Usman has been looking pretty nice. He honestly looks like a guy that won't lose unless he's fighting a top 10 guy, maybe. I think he is fighting one of those guys. His name is Mickey Larkson. And I think this guy is the real deal. He's training with Aspinall, who is the king right now. I mean, if the king's the king, what is his protege going to be, right? He should be a second-hand man. I think this is going to be light work against Usman. I don't really see Usman having that crazy power. He has had a few knockouts, but it's just like he got lucky with the right punch. He's not this Derek Lewis, this Shui Vasa with this insane, scary power. And, Mick Larkson, man, he's got a chin. He's got a chin. We've seen it. His grappling is amazing, and I think he's going to take him down. I think he's going to beat him down, and I think he's going to submit him.
Yeah, good stuff. I could definitely see that being an outcome for sure. And if he is able to just take down and control Usman at will, then that'd be pretty impressive because we've seen Usman and the development of his top game, his wrestling game, especially across the last two fights. And granted, one was against Junior Tafa, who has absolutely zero wrestling, but to do what he did against Jake Collier, which was very similar to what he did against Tafa, I thought was pretty impressive because Collier is, the white turkey sub, as we like to call him, is a guy who's pretty well rounded and has a much better ground game than any Tafa brother has for sure. But Mick Parkin's going to bring a new level that I'm curious to see how Usman deals with for sure. And if we look at Tapology, Meat Boy, they're actually pretty bullish on Mick Parkin. 60% is rolling with the heavyweight from England, and 40% is rolling with Usman. A lot of beige on both sides though, so there's barely any copper for that submission. Do you think that's where the most value will lie? I mean, if Tabology's uber bullish on the decision, barely any's rolling with the submission. Mick Parkin's submission probably does have some life though, yeah.
Oh, it absolutely has some life. Mick Parkin, he is no joke when it comes to the grappling. I mean, if you look at his come up, he's so dominant on the ground. He does have majority KOs, but Muhammad is a tough guy. I think he's gonna tap. I don't know if he's gonna take a nap, but you gotta look at Parkin's record. Parkin took out a Bigfoot. Then he took out a stormtrooper. This weekend, he's gonna take out the motor.
Yeah, great points. Well taken for sure. And the only time we saw Muhammad Usman lose, he did get submitted by Brandon Sales by a rear naked back in his PFL days. And while obviously he has gotten better since then, perhaps that could be an interesting pathway for Mick Parkin for sure. But in this one, Meat Boy, I'm going to roll with you. I'm going to take Mick Parkin. I think this fight could be fake close though. And I don't know, something about Muhammad Usman worries me just because he does have that one punch YOLO power. I mean, he knocked out Zach Pauga in a fight that he was kind of low key losing, and then just cracked him with a stiff left hook. And while yes, Zach Pauga is getting slept by everyone, I mean, I'm pretty sure he just got slept by Bum Dog. Then it's not ideal, but either way, I don't know if Mick Parkin has faced a guy with as much one punch punching power as perhaps Usman is going to be offering because Kyle Machado is kind of I don't know, he's not that great, and then the Stormtrooper is also not that great. So if Usman can crack him, maybe that would be something that he should that Parkin should worry about. But I'm gonna roll with you, Meepo. I'm gonna go Parkin. I'm gonna go by decision in what is probably a snooze fest, however. But I'm hoping Parkin Meat Larkin can pick up a finish because if he does, then I hope he gets something ranked or someone closer to the top 15 next because full steam ahead on the Mick Parkin hype train if he does get a finish in this one. So, any last thoughts on this heavyweight banger?
No, super pumped for Mick Parkin on this one. I think he gets it done. Throw in the comments. Are you taking Usman's a little big, bro? Are you taking Lock Spinall's protege? We'd love to see what you guys think.
Yeah, let us know who you're rolling with, and swap us over, Meat Boy. Let us know what's next. I believe it's Peyton Talbot, the Phantom Tollbooth, is taking on Cameron Simon, who is a plus 124 dog in this one. The guy has like 5 UFC fights, but is still somehow a teenager. He does keep getting better in these fights, though, and the only time he lost was to C-Rod. So it's been good stuff from Cameron Simon thus far. Has a finish, has some decisions. The guy's obviously very well rounded and is clearly very raw as well. You wonder how good this kid will be in the next 5 years or so, but he's taking on another kid who is seemingly on another level, on some sort of interesting zen, so to speak, in Peyton Talbot, who just picked up his first finish in the UFC. It was against Nick Aguirre, and that was a round 3 easy light work finish in a fight that it didn't look like Talbot was going to get a finish throughout the first maybe 10 minutes, but in that third round, it was almost like, okay, enough was enough. He was putting this guy away, and once he sort of flipped that mean switch, Talbot looked like a very scary dude, and the kid is very zen, he's very well-rounded, and he too is very young like his competitor Simon in this one. So I like the matchmaking. It seems like the UFC is like, all right, kids, you two have at it. Let's see who the true hype beast kid in this division is and who we're really going to start pumping because I can see who the winner of this fight getting a nice promotional push for the next 18 months or so. So Big fight for both guys in their career. You taking Talbot at -148, or you roll with your boy Simon, who I know you love to pick.
This is such a tough one because, I really do like both these guys a lot, and I've never not picked Simon. But this is one of those rare occasions where I think, Peyton might be the real freaking deal, and it's crazy to see that Tapology's got him as the favorite. I would have never guessed that. But it seems that now there's eyes on him. People know that he is like every fight I've ever seen him go. It looks like he's barely trying. He's got no expression. He does everything effortless, and he just beats everyone up. And he's got this like very like dull, like boring face. Like this isn't even a challenge. This definitely is a level up from the people he's been fighting because Cameron Simon is no joke. So either Talbot is the real deal and he just doesn't care and he's like, oh, this is light work. I just don't care about any of these fights. These are such a joke. Or he will meet his maker and Simon's and make him pay. Very curious to see how this goes. But I mean, he's got me sold. He's got that circle on his belly button or something, and I'm like, hey, whatever that is, cool. He must be the one. So I think he is the chosen one. I think he might even be, future top fiver, maybe future champ at 145. I don't know. We'll see. But I have a feeling that these guys are the next generation, and we will see them fight again on win or lose, draw, whoever it is. I could absolutely see in the next 5-10 years these guys will meet back at the top because I think both these kids are absolute studs.
Yeah, it's a cool point, and it too wouldn't surprise me if we saw these guys fight in the 2030s, which is kind of a crazy thing to say. But I mean, at 25, at 23, if both these guys have 8 to 10 year UFC careers, then perhaps they do meet again. And this could just be a first installment of what hopefully is a hyped up series. But you never know where these guys are going to go. And I love that you touched on the tats of Talbot. I mean, he's bringing like the Cyril Gone tats, but low key has the Jared Cannonier crystals in the back. I mean, this guy is on a unique wavelength for sure. I hope he's not on a Josh Fabia, Diego Sanchez wavelength because you never know where that one can go. But seems like he's pretty locked in to start. But one thing that kind of worries me about Talbot, and I want to get your thoughts on it, is the training partners. I mean, we know that Cameron Simon is working with DDP, killing it with with the team out in Pretoria, and meanwhile, I mean, Peyton Talbot has been training at the Reno Academy of Combat, and he's working with guys like Sinjen the Saint Smith, Scott Rosa, and Oscar the Terror Ramirez. So does it worry you at all that perhaps Peyton Talbot could be the best guy in his gym and maybe isn't even going to be ready for a guy as good, as tough as Cameron Simon? Or is Talbot just simply that good and even Simon's level is not quite enough?
Yeah, that's a great point. Could definitely be the case, but I think he's just ascended with all those crystals and all that mischief that he really, inspires with. I just don't know. I think he's on that uh man, what's his name? The cowboy guy. I'm drawing a blank here.
Who's the cowboy guy?
Bro, the conspiracy theorist dude.
Oh, Bryce Mitchell. Right?
Yes. He's on that Bryce Mitchell vibe where like, is there anyone in Bryce Mitchell's gym that's even good? Oh, it's just Bryce Mitchell, Bryce Mitchell's over here wrestling deer and cow. I think Talbot might be wrestling crystals and different dimension monsters. So with that case being said, I mean Simon's just a mere human, right?
So are you still rolling Talbot?
Absolutely. A mere human is nothing to Talbot and his training with the, portals and other monsters.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely picking up what you're putting down, Meat Boy. And if we look at Tapology, if we look at Talbology, 57% is rolling with Simon, 43% is rolling with Talbot. So you mentioned at the beginning of this the odds. Talbot, yes, finally getting a lot of respect from the odds makers, but another one of those weird ones where the Tapology sweaties are out thinking the odds makers and are rolling with Simon in this one. So your points are well taken, Meat Boy. I can see Talbot really being that next big thing, and I think that this kid does have a lot of talent, but I don't know. This kid, Cameron Simon, is definitely not my favorite fighter. You know, I'm not the biggest DDP mark out there, but something tells me that this kid is going to go out there and find a way to get this one done over Talbot. So, never did I anticipate ever picking your boy when you weren't picking your boy, Simon, but I'm going to roll devil's advocate. I'm going to pick MSP Cameron Simon to win a gritty, close decision in this one because my thinking is if Talbot doesn't have that killer instinct, that finishing ambition that he showcased in the third round against Nick Aguirre throughout the entire fight, then I can see Cameron Simon doing enough in the first 10 minutes to where what Talbot waking up midway through the fight just isn't it's not going to work, unfortunately, against better fighters. So I'm going to take Talbot to be a little bit too asleep throughout the first round and a half, and in so doing I'll take Simon by close majority or split decision. So I'm taking Simon. You got Phantom Tollbooth. Any last thoughts on this one?
No, this is an absolute banger, fun fight. Throw in the comments who you taking. You taking Portal Boy or the South African child?
Yeah, Portal Boy, the South African child, nonetheless, great matchup for sure. And another great one in this one, Meat Boy. We got a couple more to go. And it's one of the OG Meat Boy MMA supporters. Shout out Julian Arosa. Shout out Debbie Arosa. One of our favorite UFC families for sure. We're always repping the Yakima, Washington crew. That is Juicy J and company. And in this one, our boy Juicy J is a plus 130 dog, and he's riding a 2-fight L streak. And one thing we know about Juicy J is once he's on a nice fat win streak and you expect him to win, sometimes things can go a little bit sideways. But as soon as you start to count him out, that's when he usually does good things. So he's back to the dog land in this one, back to his back up against the wall, and taking on a guy in Ricardo Ramos, who is an 11-fight UFC veteran, a minus 160 favorite, and is 16-5 overall. And this guy's been alternating wins and losses essentially since 2019. He did just get absolutely smoked by Charles Jourdain, though, in September of 2023. And if the win-loss trajectory were to continue, then that would mean Ricardo Ramos is due for a W in this one. But he wins against guys that he probably should win against. He loses against guys who sometimes you wonder how he lost that fight. So you never know what you're going to get from Ricardo Ramos. One might argue the same for Juicy J as well, though. So a fun fight here. You taking our boy Juicy J to right the ship as a dog, get one done for the Meat Boys and Debbie, or is Ricardo Ramos coming to just squish the Juicy J machine?
Yeah, I think Jay's going to pull this one through. Ricardo Lamos, he lost to Charles Jourdain, which, like, I mean, respect because Charles Jourdain's no joke. But oh wait, we just found out Charles Jourdain is an absolute bum. He lost to Sean Woodson, was arguably one of the worst fighters in the UFC. Now he's kind of good because he beat Charles Jourdain, and it seemed like he kind of beat him easily. I remember they put that as a split, but I remember it wasn't even close, and it was like, I don't know if Sean Woodson's length is too bizarre for him or what, but Charles Jourdain went from like fighter that I've seen in a while to not so good. I mean, but then you look back, it's like, okay, Ramos, Kron Gracie, oh, sick. Okay, yeah. Charles Jourdain is absolute dust, which, if we're doing off MMA math, Ramos is dust. In that theory, Rosa, Debbie's child, is going to be the victor.
Yeah, and sometimes it's easy to fall down that line of thinking and attack the MMA math angle. And when you are able to do so, it's very easy to craft the narrative and the outcome that you want. But if we're really trying to tackle this one from a technical standpoint, Meat Boy, Ricardo Ramos versus Julian Arosa, who do you think is going to have? I guess I'm most curious who's going to have the stand-up advantage, because we've seen Ramos at times have lethal strikes, and we've at times seen our boy Juicy J get finished by those same lethal strikes. So when the fight starts off on the feet, who do you anticipate having the advantage? And then if this fight does get beyond just the stand-up stage and enters a grappling phase, who do you think's going to have the advantage there?
That's probably the only thing I kind of worry about is if it hits the mats. I mean, Ricardo, he's got a lot of submissions, and I just don't know if Rosa is still there. He's never been submitted. He's got a lot of submissions himself. He's got a lot of KOs himself. But I feel like I haven't seen Julian get a sub in a while. Last one was Charles Jourdain, which Charles Jourdain beat Ricardo. So in theory, Rosas probably submits Ramos or knocks him out. Probably gets the finish. I would imagine in the first or second round. I think the longer the fight goes, the worse it's going to be for him. But yeah, this is going to be a fun fight, an absolute slobber knocker. I could see either guy really winning, but I got to root for Debbie's kid.
Yeah, it's a fun fight for sure. And again, when Juicy J has his back up against the wall, it's usually when he delivers. And I see a world where Erosa is able to survive those early dangerous rounds when Ramos is his most powerful. And if so, similar to a fight we broke down earlier, the longer the fight goes, I think that could actually favor Erosa in this one. However, Meat Boy, the thing that worries me the most is just the age factor. Ricardo Ramos is 28 years old. Seems like he could just be entering his prime, whereas Juicy J will be 35 this year. Gotta imagine he's probably exiting his. And although I will rep Juicy J always, Debbie, longtime meathead, we would never want to upset Debbie. And I know that you're rolling with Juicy J in so doing, but I got to roll with Carachinha, Ricardo Ramos. I got to roll with the 74% of Tapology who also are going with Ricardo Ramos. And I got to fade Juicy J in this one. However, it's not one I'm not going to be putting any Ramos parlays in action. And I think Erosa by decision does have some life, but I'm going to go Ramos. I'm going to go probably like what Tapology's saying. I think he probably does pick up a finish in this one. So it pains me to fade Juicy J as hard as I am fading, but for Meat Boy's sake, I'm going Ramos by finish. Any last thoughts on this one?
No, it's a fun fight. Mrs. J, throw in the comments if you're watching, and shout out to Debbie.
Yeah, for sure. Nonetheless, and transition us over, Meat Boy. It's more featherweight action, and another interesting one from guys who are basically chilling in the same squad of the 145 rankings. Billy Quarantillo is 18-5 and a -148 favorite in this one, taking on Yusuf Zalal, the return of the Moroccan Devil. And if we fast forward, or if we rewind rather, Meat Boy, many years back to the origins of Meat Boy MMA, we broke down a Yusuf Zalal versus Ilia Topuria fight, and at that time it was near the top of the card. Topuria was undefeated, Yusuf Zalal was undefeated. It was a fight that a lot of the community was pretty split on, and many even picked Zalal at the time. So it's been fascinating to see what a few years can do for both guys' careers, because Yusuf Zalal went one way, right? He's after that Topuria fight, he didn't win for the next 3 contests. He gets cut from the UFC. Meanwhile, Topuria is the current champ. So imagine what a couple years can do. But Zalal, after getting cut from the UFC, you got to give him some credit. He did pick up 3 first-round finishes over in Sparta Combat League out in Colorado, and they were all first-round finishes, but these are the guys he beat, right? He beat Edwin Chavez, Jake Childers, and then Vadim Zanprjanji, who all these guys were unable to even make it a few minutes against the Moroccan Devil, whereas a lot of guys were going the distance easily against Moroccan Devil and were winning decisions against him when he was in the UFC. So he's back on short notice, replacing someone for Billy Q, who is another guy similar to Ramos who alternates wins and losses. And if the order is to stay the same, he's coming off a win, so perhaps a Billy Q loss is in order. But are you taking the Moroccan Devil hype beast to come back to the UFC, cause a sort of dust storm, and be able to collapse a guy like Billy Q, or is he going to fizzle out like a Haboob and basically go back to Sparta Combat League? Who are you taking?
Honestly, I think they brought him back to send him right back to Sparta Combat League. Billy Q has a beautiful win off Damon Jackson, which Damon's no joke. So props to him on getting that. And hey, props to Moroccan Devil for getting back to the UFC. Honestly, didn't even know he'd left. Didn't know they cut him. Kind of makes sense why they cut him. But also kind of mind blowing. It feels like he just was never gone. I don't know why, even though it's been a long time since a couple years now? I didn't even notice. But yeah, this should be a fun fight. This is a great matchup for Billy. And I think Billy's going to get a finish.
Yeah, it's essentially almost been 2 years, Meat Boy, since Yusuf Zalal has been outside of the UFC, which is pretty fascinating because it does seem like he had sort of a quiet exit. No one really talked about it, and it's very interesting to see a guy have a quiet exit when 2 years prior, people thought that he might be a next champ. People thought that he would beat Ilia Topuria. So really just highlights how quickly this game moves when you're not paying attention. And Billy Q is your pick. If you look at Tapology, Meat Boy, they're basically in agreement with you. They think that the Moroccan Devil is due for hell in this one against Billy Q, but of the 77%, it's basically all beige. 23% meanwhile, Roland Zalal, and his is beige as well. So a lot of decision backers. Do you think Billy Q picks up a finish in this one, or is decision where you're going as well?
I think he's gonna get a finish this one. Decision, I just don't see it. I think one of these guys are getting slept, unconscious, KO submission. I gotta take Billy. Billy's got those bombs, man. He's gonna send it right back to BKFC.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing to me as well. And I think what worries me is if he's picking up all these finishes outside of the UFC, that being Yusuf Zalal, and he's trying to come in here and just continue the first round finish streak against a guy like Billy Q, then to me that sounds sort of like a pipe dream because Billy Q is as durable as many guys in the division in the entire UFC. And while yes, he got slapped by that absolute beautiful knee from Edson Barbosa in the first round just a year ago, just about 11 months ago, I don't anticipate Zalal having anywhere near the striking arsenal and power that Edson Barbosa has, and therefore I don't think a first round finish for Zalal is in the works. And once he's unable to put Billy Q out early in that first round, I just see Billy being able to take over in rounds 2 and 3. So I'm gonna go Billy Q. I think he gets this done by decision, but I'm also gonna be checking out and seeing if there's any like plus 1500, plus 1600 life for a round 3, maybe even a round 2 as well. Billy Q finish because I think those have life. And while historically being a decision machine, maybe Zalal in this second UFC tenure coming in with all this momentum and hype and first round finish ability, maybe he gasses out and gets absolutely slept. So interesting stuff in this one for sure. I'll go Billy Q. We're both going Billy Q. Any last thoughts on that one?
No, fun fight, an absolute banger, and just like the main event, another banger.
Yeah, it's the meat event. Swap us over, Meat Boy. Another absolute banger, I guess. Amanda Ribas is taking on Thug Rose Namajunas, the former champ, who, despite losing 2 straight, is still a minus 245 favorite in this one. And Ribas, meanwhile, is plus 200, even though last time we saw her was about 4 months ago, and she picked up a beautiful performance of the night. TKO spinning wheel kick and punch finish over Luana Pinheiro in a fight that she was looking great. She was kind of dominating, and when she really put the pedal to the metal at the end, she was able to get that elusive finish. Because, I mean, if we think back to Ribas, this was a woman who was winning a lot of decisions, and the last time she picked up a finish was when she basically retired Paige Van Zant in the early first round of an Abu Dhabi contest during COVID season in 2020. So a great finish for Ribas, and really seemed like Ribas turned sort of a new chapter. I think she's as dialed as perhaps she's ever been, and she's going to need a supreme level of focus if she's trying to take out a woman as tough, as durable, as much of a legend as Rose Namajunas, who at 11-6, it's very interesting how this woman has less than 20 total UFC fights, but is definitely one of the OGs, one of the veterans, one of the legends essentially in any women's MMA division. So what she's done in such a short career relative has been impressive, but we'd be remiss if we didn't mention she's lost 2 straight. She tried debuting at flyweight against Manon Fiorot in September of last year, and that did not go her way. And I wonder, and maybe I'm, armchair psychology, putting a little bit too much into nothing, but I sometimes wonder if Rose Namajunas has the same drive, has the same desire to be a champ, to be the best, as perhaps she once did when she was on her dominant UFC Women's Strawweight Championship reign that she was on just a few years back. So, what are your thoughts on this one, Meat Boy? Are you at all surprised that Thug Rose is still getting a lot of Vegas support, or does it make sense? And she's actually going to make this light work over Ribas, who we think could be a hungrier fighter. Who are you taking?
This is such a tough one because, at one point it was like Rose is the GOAT of, 115 division, but now she's 125. And I just don't know if she's built for this class. I think she's too small. I think Hebos was an oversized 115er, and now she's an average, normal, solid size 125er. And I think Rose is a very small 125er. So unless Rose has been beefing up, I just don't see how this is gonna go her way. I think Rose might get submitted too, because it's not like Rose has never been taken down, right? Like her takedown defense isn't this, oh, she can never get taken down. she's been taken down a lot, and kind of questionable for me when it comes to Hebos because you hit the mat with Hebos, probably going to sleep. She is no joke when it comes to grappling. I think Hebos has really leveled up. Her striking plus her grappling. It's going to be a scary night for Rose, especially with Hebos' size. So I got to take Hebos in this. I think she's going to get done. And man, do I love a plus 200 dog. Oh, so you got to love to see that. I think RIP Rose. I think Rose is going to be KFC with PVZ versus Rose main event. And yeah.
Yeah, I do like the Hebos value. I think that there's a lot of life for plus 200 for sure. You did mention the size though, and while yes, it does for some reason seem like Hebos is like a more natural flyweight, she is still going to be the smaller fighter against Rose. I mean, Rose is 5'5", Hebos is only 5'3", and she was a 115 star before making the jump herself. So I don't know if the size is going to be as big of a factor as perhaps the Manon Fiorot versus Rose fight was, just because Minot is like a legit, probably walks around north of 145, cutting a lot of weight down, where Rose is probably a more natural in this weight class for sure. But I'm curious to your point also, what has Rose been doing since that Minot contest? Has she been bulking up? Has she been really starting to put on some size and some mass? And if so, is she then able to outmuscle Hebos? But if you remember me, boy, we said the exact same thing going into the Fiorot fight. We were like, she's gonna have to put on some size. If she does, she might have the strength to endure, and ultimately none of that happened. So to me, I'm just not as bullish. To your point of picking Hebos, I'm just not as bullish on what Thug is doing in the off season, so to speak, these days. And because of that, I'm gonna roll with the hungrier dog, Hebos. I'm rolling with you, Meat Boy, but Tapology's fading us pretty heavy. 77% is rolling with Thug Rose. It's basically beige on both sides, so they think Hebos by decision is most likely, and Rose by decision. But I do think Hebos by finish is interesting. I mean, it's a 5-round fight, so if she's not picking up a finish herself, I don't know. For some reason, I feel like Hebos has to get a finish in this one. But what are your thoughts on that? Are you at all surprised by the 77% for Rose Tapology to 23% Rebos? And do you think that Hebos can win a decision?
Yeah, I think Hebos can win a decision, but I think most likely it's gonna be a finish. Rose, she could win a decision, maybe a knockout. I doubt she submits Hebos, but that will be interesting. But I don't know. I don't like Rose at 125. I'm just gonna be honest. Like she was the GOAT at 115. You're telling me you beat everyone, you lose to the Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster gets absolutely ragdolled by the girl you've already beaten and now you scared to go back and get your belt back? I don't know. So I think Rose is kind of just like, I'm over it. I don't want to stress. I don't want to be the center of attention. I don't want to be a champion. I want to just fight and not have to cut weight and get money. That's how I look at it. And that is a scary person to put money on. Blows my mind that she's this big of a favorite. And for that reason, I'm out. I think Hebos is still hungry. She is fresh. She is young. She is new. And she's going to dominate her, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you, me boy. I'm rolling with that same line of thinking for sure, but the odds suggest otherwise. Topology suggests otherwise as well. So if we're sleeping on Thug Rose, if this is a y'all must have forgot situation, let us know down low in the comments because it's very possible, me boy, that we'll be recapping this next week and we'll be saying, "Dang, she still got it. We definitely slept on Thug Rose," but I don't know. The vibe just seems a little bit off for me these days on Thug Rose. So I'm with you, me boy. I'm going to take the plus 200 he boss, and I like her maybe to pick up a finish in this one, perhaps in the third, fourth, or maybe in fifth round. But an interesting fight card from the Apex for sure. Lastly, me boy, again, I asked you to pick how well you would do last week. You said 5-1. You basically went 5-1. I didn't have my best week ever. I only picked up 2 Ws last week. So what are your thoughts on this one? We broke down 6 record heading into next week. How many picking up this week?
I think I'm gonna go 4-2 this week.
4-2 for you. I'm gonna say 5-1 for your boy. Not quite sure which one is going to be the miss, but there usually will be one sprinkled in there. The only thing I know, Meat Boy, is that the Meat Lock is not going to be one of the misses for the Meat Boys because the Meat Lock's on track. Got to be third in a row. Got to be Edmen Shahbazyan. Yes, it's 4 years later than what we initially hoped for, but 4 years later nonetheless. So Shahbazyan's the Meat Lock. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, fun fights, Great card once again. Throw in the comments, smash that, subscribe, and check out the future videos, previous videos, and throw some love in the comments below.